You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet. Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
All right, Miami! Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest football team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. 'Cause we're the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins.
Good afternoon, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Wednesday, May the 29th. I am your host, Michael Leva, joined by a very special guest today, Maura Carey, who covers the Miami Dolphins, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Jacksonville Jaguars for GulfLive.com. You can follow her on Twitter at TakesByMaura. Maura, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, because you cover the Dolphins, so I wanted to sort of pick your brain a little bit here on the upcoming season, the offseason for Miami. But before we get to that, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself, how long you've been covering the NFL, and some of the stuff you're doing at GulfLive.com?
Absolutely. So I started off with SteelerNation.com a couple years ago. Wrote with them and did some TikTok stuff as well, some social media stuff. And then last year I started covering all three Florida NFL teams with GulfLive.com. It's an expansion of the advanced local sites. So like Mass Live, who cover the Patriots, NewJersey.com, Penn Live covers the Eagles, and soon the Steelers. So yeah, it's been a really fun adventure. I cover all three teams going into my second year doing so, and definitely is a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
Lots to keep me busy this offseason.
A lot to keep you busy with those teams because all three of those teams are pretty good right now. So there's always a lot to talk about. Miami was in the playoffs last year. Jacksonville was in the playoffs 2 years ago, almost made it last year. And Tampa Bay, they were in the playoffs last year as well, I believe, with Mayfield. So, yeah, you have to cover three very good teams. So that'll keep you busy. But we're here to talk about the Dolphins. Can't talk about the Dolphins unless we start off with Tua Tagovailoa. A lot of speculation right now. Will he get a contract extension prior to training camp or prior to the season? What are your thoughts on Tua? And do you think he'll get an extension prior to the season? Or when it's all said and done, is he just going to play out his fifth-year option, and then next year maybe he'll have the franchise tag placed on him? What are your thoughts altogether on Tua?
I think that they've made it clear that Tua is going to be their guy, right? One of my favorite stories is, you hear about Mike McDaniel, who gets the job 2 years ago, 2 seasons ago, and he comes in and he's looking at the offense. He breaks down so many clips of Tua, and he's like, this is our problem. We need to get targets for this guy because he's got the arm, he's got the talent. And so from there, they've built this team around this guy. And I don't think, given the progression that he's shown, the improvement each year, kind of the now list of accolades he can kind of use as a bargaining tool, I don't think we're going into the season without him getting his contract. I don't think it needs to be a crazy record-breaking deal. And I don't know if the Dolphins would be interested in giving him one. But I think they will reach an agreement. That's kind of, maybe slightly team friendlier than some of these other crazy contracts we're seeing, but also a really great deal for Tua as well. So I'm feeling confident.
I think he probably won't take less than the money that Jared Goff just got from the Lions. I think that's probably what he probably slots into in or around that range anyways. I think that's probably going to be close to what he'll get. And I'm sure he wants more. Who wouldn't want more? Everyone wants more. But I think in reality, that's probably where he's going to fall. That's a nice place to fall, a nice place to land, especially considering he had all the concussions issues and stuff prior to this past season to sort of play a full 17-game season, lead the NFL in passing yards. If he can cash in and get that type of deal now, I think it makes sense. But he doesn't have it yet. And I know one of the other quarterbacks for one of the other teams you cover, Trevor Lawrence, he's also, even though he was picked 1 year after Tua, he's up for an extension. Who gets one first, you think? Tua or Lawrence?
All right, this is a real interesting topic of conversation. So I think that the conversations about Tua getting that extension have started way before Trevor Lawrence, right? I think we've seen more about, those conversations being had, going back and forth with Tua's team, with the Dolphins. I do think Tua will get that deal first. I don't think his deal is going to be done this offseason. We'll, of course, see. But I think it would be a big move considering he did regress slightly last year. Of course, it was the first time in his career he handled any type of adversity, sitting out with injuries for the first time in his entire career. But I do think that, Tua comes off the stronger season. I think the Dolphins have made it clear that they're more serious about it at this time. I do think both deals will get done. But I think that Tua will be the first across the finish line.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think, again, when you look at each of the quarterbacks, I think they're very similar in a lot of ways. That they probably come out of college, they didn't live up to the hype that was sort of thrown on them, but they're still both very good quarterbacks at the end of the day. So, I think they're both going to get paid. But I would agree. I think with Tua, it's probably going to happen prior to training camp or prior to the start of the season, maybe late August. And we'll see. This offseason for Miami and this offense, it was one of the most high-powered, explosive offenses last year. They had Odell Beckham to be a number 3 wide receiver type. They added the tight end Jonnu Smith in the draft. They also took some wide receivers late, and then they also took another running back to go with Achane and Mostert to throw into the mix. This offense just got more weapons. What are your thoughts on the offense? Is this going to be even more explosive than it was last year, you think? Or, it just seems like they just keep adding piece on top of piece on top of piece, making a strength almost a super strength.
Right. I think we know the Dolphins love speed, right? We know that that's their thing. And I think McDaniel having his first rounder of his tenure in Miami, I think it was just impossible almost for him not to press the button on skill players. But I am glad that they held back a little bit and waited for some of the later rounds. I think that, we do have the potential to see an even more explosive offense. We're keeping a lot of the key pieces for as far as skill players go, and we're adding Odell, who has a little gas left in the tank. And then we're also adding a really talented running back. I think that the future of the offense is great. I'm not worried from a skill position standpoint, but I do have some concerns when it comes to the trenches, I will say.
That was my next question. So let's get right into it. Does it concern you? And if not, it probably should. This offensive line, they're bringing the band back together for the most part. Small changes, very small changes. Swap in one center out for the other center. The right guard, they just let walk, which I understand why, a lot of money, but didn't do much to replace them.
Right.
That's questionable. I don't know.
Yeah, it's the trenches all around that I'm a little bit concerned about when it comes to the Dolphins. I think, in some ways that early bye week is concerning. Like everybody's like, oh, the Dolphins, have historically a great start to the season and then they fizzle out, they lose momentum. Injury bug usually bites pretty hard. Hopefully not this year. But maybe it could be a good thing. Maybe it could be kind of a good time to reassess, to really, gain some continuity on that offensive line, because I do have some concerns. And I think that, Tua, when he has the time, has shown that he has a fantastic deep ball, brilliant accuracy, but will he have the time to do so is my question.
DolphinsTalk.com is your one stop for all things Miami Dolphins. With news, commentary, video, interviews, and the Webby Award-winning DolphinsTalk.com daily podcast, DolphinsTalk.com has you covered on all of the latest happenings surrounding the Miami Dolphins. Whether it's training camp, the draft, free agency, or the current Miami Dolphins season, DolphinsTalk.com has it covered. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @DolphinsTalk and to visit the website, DolphinsTalk.com, each and every day. That's DolphinsTalk.com.
Okay, this is part 2 of the interview, and if it looks different if you're watching on YouTube, it's because Maura is in a storm right now that knocked out her internet, so she had to move rooms to get closer to the router. So if you're watching on YouTube, it's going to look totally different than it did in the first part of the interview. But Maura, let's pick up where we left off.
Absolutely. It's been a crazy journey, but happy to be
It has been a crazy journey. The Miami Dolphins defense, they lost a bunch of players. Christian Wilkins, Raekwon Davis, Jerome Baker, Xavier Howard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Emmanuel Agba, Brandon Jones, and Deshaun Elliott. They did sign guys like Jordan Brooks, Jordan Poyer, Shaq Barrett, and Kendall Fuller, but a lot of new pieces with a new coordinator as well, and a whole new system. What are your thoughts on the Dolphins defense?
Yeah, I think so what we're seeing is a lot of guys who stepped up majorly last year when they needed it, right? When players started to go down with injuries, a lot of those guys like Andrew Van Ginkel, who I'm a huge fan of, very happy that he's
all are. Everyone loves the Ginkel.
Very happy that he's returning home, but losing players like that hurts, right? So we lose arguably one of the best, not arguably, one of the best players on the roster in Christian Wilkins. Excited to see him get his deal, but it hurts the Dolphins. And that's something that we really didn't address in the draft whatsoever. So that's a big loss. It puts a ton of pressure on Zach Sealer for next year. And then a lot of those kind of players that helped fill the void last year are also gone. So I think the Dolphins defense, it's going to take some time to mesh. I think there will absolutely be some growing pains going into the season. But again, maybe that's when that week 5 bye can or week 6 bye can kind of help you out a little bit, right? Maybe it'll give the team kind of a chance to reassess and see how they're doing with those first games underway. Then I also wonder what the status of Jaylen Phillips and Bradley Chubb will be going into the season.
That's why that bye week early is going to help, because I don't think either one of them. Chubb we know is going to be later in the season anyway, so probably like November-ish most likely. Phillips, there's a lot of talk that he wants to come back, first part of the year, September-ish, even by week 1 possibly. I don't think it's realistic. So I think that I'd rather have, as a fan of the Dolphins, more games after the bye when there's a chance they might play in them than before the bye. So that early bye just for Chubb and Jaylen might actually help Miami this year in some way. But yeah, without those two on top of everything else they lost. And I know, look, there's a lot of fans of Dolphins who are listening to this who get very emotional over you. Don't say anything bad about the Dolphins, but they've lost a lot of good players on defense. And, Jordan Brooks, Jerome Baker, to me, that's kind of a wash. You didn't really get worse, but I don't know if he got that much better.
Right.
We lost 2 young safeties. You signed an older guy in Jordan Poyer, who just turned 33. That's kind of scary. Shaq Barrett, who's on the end of his career. Andrew Van Ginkel's an ascending young player. I don't know if that's a good trade-off. Xavier Howard, Kendall Fuller. I know the money aspect played a huge part there. I get it. Okay. Right. But they lost a lot, and then you got no Chubb and no Jaylen. And then a whole new system and scheme coming in with Anthony Weaver. That's a lot of moving parts on defense.
There's going to be some growing pains for sure. And as much as I want to say everything's going to be great right away, it's not, right? That's the reality of it. It takes some time to learn the scheme and to also mesh with your players. And I think this really puts Chop Robinson in a very interesting position. He might have that welcome to the NFL moment early.
Sink or swim, baby. Sink or swim. You're in there.
Exactly. So, we have him and potentially Jaylen Phillips. We don't know, but definitely Shaq Barrett will be in the mix. We saw him do a little bit for Tampa Bay last year, 4.5 sacks, but it's still not that presence where Jaylen Phillips and Bradley Chubb are going to have a big role. They're going to be huge in disrupting quarterback play, especially with Christian Wilkins no longer on the team. So it hurts to have those guys out early, but again, maybe that's when that early bye kind of helps the team out a little bit.
Yeah, and with all that money coming off the books June 1st, like really in 2 days from the time we are recording this or so, they need someone on the defensive line. I know a lot of fans want them to sign a guard, and I totally understand why. And a lot of fans want them to sign a safety because there's not a lot of safety depth. Totally understand why. But, they signed 6 or 7 guys to replace Christian Wilkins, but they're like 1-year type deals, under $2 million. Right. And a lot of those guys are lucky to be in the NFL, period. They're not very good. And, fans go, there's going to be rotation. Yeah, but if everyone in the rotation isn't very good, I don't care what the rotation is. If they can go out there and sign someone who, it's not going to be a superstar, but a capable NFL end that you can put in there and go, he's not Christian Wilkins, but he's better than maybe these 6 or 7 guys we signed. That's where I'd like to see them spend some of this money post June 1st. We'll see. I don't know.
With you, yeah, for sure. Hopefully they'll address those trenches specifically on defense.
I think that's more concerning. Yeah.
Post June 1st. But overall, hopefully the vibes will be better on defense this year. That's for sure.
Well, it sounds like it because Javon Holland not going to send Vic Fangio a Christmas card. I think we know that for sure. Not send him a Christmas card.
I feel pretty confident on that. So
yeah, and he sounds like he's not alone. Sounds like there's some other guys like Cam Smith probably not going to send him, hey, a random text. What's up? That ain't happening with Vic and those guys. Looking around the AFC East. We'll put the Patriots aside. They're in year one of a big rebuild there. Bills lost a lot. Miami lost some. The Jets, just by having their quarterback back, so to make them just improve on just the base level. Yes. How do you see those three teams in the AFC East? Does one of them sort of stand out to you?
So it's interesting. As all of these moves were being made, I was checking the odds often, right? Because we see the Dolphins kind of as, the Bills are the favorite. Dolphins come in that number 2 spot. Experts aren't expecting much to change. I'm curious, what the AFC East will look like here. I think you're right. We can take the Patriots out of the equation for now. I think the Jets could be sneaky, but we haven't seen Rodgers play in so long now. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that shakes out for them. The Bills, I don't know if they'll have the drop off that people are thinking they will. They got a guy in the draft who it already seems like they're connecting very well with Josh Allen. So I think it'll be interesting. I think Josh Allen is going to be Josh Allen. I think that Miami's going to benefit from playing them early. And hopefully we can get an early dub against them because last year it really did hurt losing 2 against them. I do think, the Bills are going to be the Bills, and I think the Jets are going to be a surprise. But I definitely think the division is going to be significantly more competitive this year.
I'll say this too about the Jets. If you look at their schedule, the first half of the year, or even a little bit more than half, they play every rookie quarterback. They play the Vikings with a rookie quarterback. They play the Patriots twice with a rookie quarterback. They play the Broncos with a rookie quarterback.
So they're going to be pretty good.
They're going to get off to a fast start. I mean, I don't care. Even if the offense isn't great, even if Rodgers isn't perfect or like he was in years past, they're going to get off to a fast start just because they're going to beat up and feast on rookie quarterbacks. Now, the end of their schedule gets a little tougher. Miami, right. The first part of their schedule, too, is not as easy as that, but it's a little bit easier. Late, they had brutal schedule for Miami second half of the year. The Bills, I'll say that I think the Bills are going to be fine. Not that I want them to be, but I think they'll be fine. But they don't have much at wide receiver. And I think for Miami to play them in week 2 at home is going to be a help because it might take them a while to get on the same page because he has all new wide receivers for the most part. And that's going to hurt Josh Allen some. So I think, look, if we're May 29th as we sit here and record, if you told me on the first week of January, any one of those teams won the AFC East, I would not be shocked. I think it's totally wide open. This is the most wide open that the AFC East has been since Tom Brady came into the league, honestly, because it went from Tom Brady straight to the Bills, kind of. But it's wide open. But I think any one of those 3 teams could win the league. It's just going to be what team makes the fewest mistakes, which team can stay the healthiest. Right. And that's kind of it. I mean, it's really all 3 of those teams I think are really close.
I do too. I think that you're putting a ton of pressure on Keon Coleman. I think that, we've started to see him connect with Josh Allen, but I think that is going to be extremely important because, you're asking him to fill Stephon Diggs' shoes. And that's not an easy task.
He can't do that. He's not built that way. He can't.
Right. And then you also lost Gabe Davis. So, Josh Allen just does not have as many targets as he has in years past. We have seen he's a very talented runner. He's a very mobile quarterback, and he is going to do what he's going to do. But I think that, we did see the Bills drop off a little bit this offseason, whereas the Jets have absolutely improved just by Aaron Rodgers alone being back. So I do think kind of all 3 teams are right here. So it'll be interesting. I could see, 3-1-1 records between each team.
Yeah, so I agree. And when you were talking about the odds, that's something I watch because it's been known for me to place a bet or 2 every now and then. And I did check the odds because I know last year I think Miami the over under was like 9.5 or so, and I jumped all over because I had a lot of confidence. This year, as much as I think they'll get to 10, I don't have as much confidence that they're going to get to 10. And I think the Jets might also be at 9.5, or they might actually be 10. I haven't checked the Bills because I'll never bet them. But it's just yeah. I mean, I think all those teams are kind of lumped close together. As we wrap up here, now let's take a look at the AFC East overall. And we obviously know the Chiefs, Pat Mahomes and everything, that team last year wasn't even that great, and they still won a Super Bowl, which tells you all you need to know. But the Ravens lost a couple players. Cleveland, they're going to get their quarterback back. Don't know if that helps or hurts. I mean, honestly, but that roster's loaded. You look at the South; it's a little bit of a mess in the AFC South overall. I mean, you got teams that aren't bad, but not one team. Houston has a potential to be great.
I was going to say
it's potential. It's potential.
I was going to say if CJ Stroud doesn't hit a sophomore slump, Houston could be the team to beat this year. I mean, they just have weapon after weapon. I love D'Amico Ryans as a coach. I think that team was really building something special last year. And if they can kind of keep that momentum rolling in, they could be the team to beat. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Jags regress a little bit. I think it'll take some time to kind of, ramp up. I think the Colts have a ton of potential with Anthony Richardson back if he can stay healthy. So the AFC South is interesting to monitor. I think, how we've spoken about those AFC East teams, 3 being kind of right here. I think it's kind of going to be a competition between the AFC North and the AFC East on who's going to get those wild card spots.
The North is crazy good. All 4 of those teams are good. Pittsburgh improved a lot. Cleveland was already very good. Now they're going to get healthy. Cincinnati's, I mean, if they can stay healthy, they're dangerous.
Right.
So, and then you got the Ravens. Everyone knows the Ravens are the Ravens. That division is insane.
Yeah. So I think
out west, it's a mess too. I mean, you got the Chiefs and everyone else, really.
Right. Yeah, the Chiefs and everyone else, absolutely. So I see right now. I see the Texans taking that spot in the AFC South. I see the Chiefs are going to be the Chiefs. And then it gets interesting between the AFC North and the AFC East. I think a lot of those teams could contend for a wild card spot, and I think that's what we'll see as the season starts to kind of ramp up. So that, I mean, Miami's going to need to be on their A game because every year those Bills sneak up on you. It could be the Jets this year. We don't know. But, Miami, I think the real challenge this year for them is going to be playing a complete season. And we're used to that hot start, but there's going to be so much to adjust to at the beginning of the season that consistency throughout the season is going to just be more important than ever for them.
Yeah, they have to stay healthy, which I know some of that's a little bit of luck involved there, obviously.
Absolutely.
They have to stay healthy, and they have to find ways to beat good teams. I don't care if it's home or away. Last year, it's a narrative about them because it's true. And if they can find a way to beat, nobody expects them to beat all the good teams. That's unrealistic for any team, but you got to beat a couple along the way. And if they can beat a couple along the way, get that confidence, stay healthy, go into the end of the season as healthy as one team can possibly be, unlike last year where it was just a mess. They have a chance because that offense is explosive and it can score on anybody. And so you're always going to have a chance, but we have to see him do it. But really, when you look at the AFC, even the NFL, I mean, Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and Taylor Swift, it's their world. We're just living in it right now. If they're on their game, nobody beating them. I mean, it's just if they're on their game, nobody beating them.
Right. And even when you start to get excited, and I was getting excited last year, I was thinking, all right, it's not the Chiefs' year.
Not the Chiefs.
And then it was because they get hot at the right time.
Yeah, because it's fun on Super Bowl Sunday. For all those years, Tom Brady's playing in the game. It's kind of boring. It's getting kind of boring with the Chiefs. Let's see someone else get a chance.
That's how
the Bills or Jets, but anyone else, let's see somebody else get a chance.
100%. That is how I'm
feeling. Last question for you. I got to ask, because I know you also cover Tampa Bay and you also cover Jacksonville.
Okay.
I got to ask with Jacksonville. The ownership down there. Tony Khan and his dad showing up on the wrestling, shows up at the draft with the neck brace. I mean, do the other coaches, do the players, do they look at these people like I work for a lunatic? What's the vibe down there around that ownership group? They seem like they're out of their bleeping mind.
I think that they're, a reality show or a Hard Knocks coming to Jacksonville would be very interesting.
Oh, that would be priceless.
Because there's just a lot going on there. But
it's a nice way of saying it.
Yes, but I think that, the Jags players are very media trained. I think that they do an excellent job, trying not to let that stir the pot too much. But yeah, there's definitely some interesting things going on in Jacksonville.
Doug Peterson at the draft looked like he was so annoyed. Like, I'm sitting next to this guy wearing a neck brace who's like smiling like a goof at the camera.
Right.
He looks so annoyed.
All right. And then are they going to be the London Jags at some point is just a whole other question, because we know that stadium, is going to happen at one time or another, and they're going to need to relocate. And so the conversation becomes, are they going to go to Daytona Speedway? I know that was a conversation. Are they going to go to Orlando potentially? They already play 2 games a year over in London. Could they just kind of continue doing that? It's a really interesting conversation. So there's definitely always a lot happening in Jacksonville. That is,
there is. Sure. And he's one of the richest owners too, that Shad Khan. Like, seriously, and I don't like getting into stuff, but there should be no taxpayer dollars for the people of Florida. Like, he's got that much money. Pay for it yourself, buddy, okay? Really, I don't want to hear, like, you can build yourself a new stadium in Jacksonville if you want. You shouldn't need taxpayer dollars, real taxpayer dollars. If you want to put, like, a hotel tax, whatever, that's nothing. The big money, that guy's one of the richest people in the world, and, pay for it yourself. But, yeah, they just seem like a hot freaking mess, honestly. And week 1, Jacksonville, Miami. I'm sure you'll be there. We got 2 of the 3 playing.
I know. I gotta get over there, but that should be a good one. I think that'll be a good one to start out with for the Dolphins for sure. I think both teams have a lot to adjust to right off the bat. But I think both teams are competitive, right? We have a really similar quarterback situation. Dolphins definitely have the edge when it comes to skill players, that's for sure. But I think the Jags have them on defense right now just because of that lack of continuity going into the next year for the Dolphins. So that should be a pretty fun matchup week 1, but hopefully the Dolphins can get one under their belt. Didn't hear that from me. I'm sure I should be unbiased.
I won't tell your Jacksonville folks. Don't worry. And week 1 will be here before we know it. It's already heading into June. It flies by the off season.
I'm ready. Maura, that's for sure.
I am ready too. Maura, thanks so much for a few moments of your time and for braving the storm in this podcast where we had to switch locations. It
was well worth it. Thank you for being patient. Yeah, a little background change.
That's okay.
Never heard everybody, but thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm sure we'll talk again in the future. Be sure to follow Maura on Twitter at TakesByMaura, and also follow her work at GulfLive.com. Everyone, thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again after a while. And folks, don't forget, we must put an end to highway profanity.